Hey up, guys, I'm Mason, the blind wrestling fan. Usually, I bring you wrestling in the dark, but today I've got something a little bit different. Recently, I stumbled across World Chase Tag, which is a sport combining the nostalgia of tag with the high octane world of free running and parkour. Today, I was lucky enough to be able to sit down via Skype to talk to Christian, the man behind it all, and pick his brain on everything to do with World Chase Tag. So, buckle up, have fun, and if you enjoy this interview, you know what to do. Imagine the childhood nostalgia of playing tag, but on steroids. It's free running parkour mixed with tag. Say hello, Christian.
Hi guys. Thank you for having me on.
No, it's fine. This is something completely new for me. I've never done an interview before, so it might not be the smoothest experience, but I think we're both gonna do the best we can.
That's all right. I'm not that used to them either, so I think we're okay.
Well, we'll help each other along with it. So you were telling me just a little bit before we started recording. You were telling me about the start of WCT, the family orientated story of how you started playing with your son, and how it started off just playing in the backyard using obstacles that you had, and progressing into using barrier tape in Hyde Park, and then going into parkour gyms, and how it's just slowly progressed from there to getting sponsors and uh, having sort of TV deals. So how mad of a journey has that been really over the last few years?
Yeah, it's. I always thought that there was the possibility that when we did our first test shoot, one of the things that we said, myself and Damon, we said and it's kind of strange to like to speak about it in this terms to your audience specifically, but we felt that if what we were doing didn't look good, then we weren't going to do it. We liked the idea of tag and we thought it would be good. And but we said to ourselves, we're going to get some scaffolding, create a quad, hire some like parkour athletes. And if the professional parkour athletes didn't look good doing the sport that we were going to do, then we weren't going to pursue it any longer. And literally within about 5 minutes of watching the parkour athletes, we realized, oh my God, this looks awesome. Yeah. And so we thought, right, yeah, we've got to continue with this, even though the market kind of thinks it's silly, or it at the time it was maybe like it was a totally untested concept. So yeah, it on paper the chances of success were very low. But we always thought, at least with Facebook and everything like that, if we got like one video out, we always thought it would be, it could be it has the potential for at least one or two viral videos. And actually, sure enough, when we did our first competition, literally the second video that we put out went viral, and it remains actually one of our biggest videos on Facebook. Our YouTube channel grew a lot later, but once you have something out on Facebook like that, then it's easily shareable, and then a lot of people have seen it. So we had quite a lot of content over the years that has gone out and has been shared by quite a high degree with everyone. So that sort of spreads globally. So that side of things was it was good. But to say it's been mad, we're like at the moment we're mad busy trying to do everything, and we're really pleased with how everything is going. But we still have a long way to go before we can achieve what we want to achieve, and that is a sustainable community, a sustainable global community where the athletes and all of the teams that are involved have some kind of platform that allows them to, whether it's professional or semi-professional, but basically allows them to treat this as a formal kind of business arrangement or career where they're actually making money doing what they want to do. This is the goal. So it's been pretty crazy, but we still have a long way to go in that regard.
Oh man, if it was up to me, you'd be going all the way to the top, because when I first heard of WCT, I was just taken aback, because I was like, what is this? And then instantly was just hooked, because I like any sort of weird sport. I remember probably close to a decade ago now, when I first heard of slam ball, which is, for anyone who doesn't know, is basketball with trampolines, which and full contact. And when I first heard of that, I just couldn't wrap my head around it, and couldn't get enough of watching it on YouTube. And because, for a little bit of background to you, Christian, I haven't always been blind. I've always been visually impaired, but I've only been fully blind now since early 2017. So I couldn't get enough of watching it on YouTube, and it's the same sort of thing with the World Chase Tag. I heard about it, I went on YouTube, I went on the channel, and I just spent a couple of days like just binging it, because it was just such an awesome concept.
So this is because our commentary has sort of been refined and improved over the years. So I'm not sure how much even commentary we had like on the videos at the beginning. So were you able, when you first saw it, were you able to partially see anything?
No, I only heard about it about 2 or 3 weeks ago. It was literally just before I fired off the tweet at the World Chase Tag Twitter, to say that I was impressed with it. But I watched some of the quad tactics videos, which I actually found really, really interesting. And I think that you've done a really good job with them, because I really like that you've provided visual descriptions of the obstacles, talking about the sisters and how you can go over them or under them, or vault over them, and talking about the front line and how you can use it to duke your opponents and trick them and go which way, and and I think that it's really, really interesting that you've provided those visual descriptions. So actually pretty valuable for an audience member that you didn't even know you were going to have.
For the sake of the audience, would it help if I just gave a brief description on what it was we're talking about? Like, shall I go through?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So basically, our rules of chase tag is we play it in what we call a quad. It's basically an arena that's 12 meters by 12 meters. So there's a border on the outside that's angled 45 degrees, and it's about, what's the depth of the border? What's the length? It's 50 centimeter board, angled at 45 degrees. And all of the obstacles are contained within that 12 by 12 meters. So we have each match is 16 chases long, and it has one chaser and one evader. The rule that you really need to understand is the winner of the chase always stays on as the evader. So if you've got athlete A team A against team B, what would happen is you do rock, paper, scissors to see who evades first. So let's say team A is evading, team B is chasing. So it's chase one. Team B chases team A. They've got 20 seconds to catch them. If they catch them within the 20 seconds, then, as I said, the main rule is the winner always stays on as the evader. So team B catches team A in chase one, so team B now stays on as the evader in chase two, and team A sends out a new chaser. How you score is you have to last 20 seconds without getting caught. So if in the second chase, team A fails to catch team B scores a point. Winner always stays on as the evader. So team B continues on the quad, and then team A sends out another chaser again in chase three, and the score is now 1-0. So it's the best of 16 chases, and that's really it. There's a 30-second gap in between chases, so cardio becomes quite a key factor, because if you've had a close chase as a chaser, say it lasts 15, 16, 17, 18, 9 seconds, you're going to be pretty gassed out if you've sprinted for 19 seconds and you've only got
Yeah.
30 seconds to recover. So then you now have to try and last 20 seconds. So if you've got like one or two evasions, then you are going to be tired. And prior to this event, the most anyone has ever done in a row is 3 evasions. Things happen, and I can't tell you the outcome of this event because it hasn't been broadcast yet. So you have to tune into Channel 4 to find out if anyone breaks that. But it's quite a challenge to do that. So in terms of the obstacles, the flooring that we use is like a kind of linoleum. So it's like a sort of plastic. It's called dance floor material, and it's grippy for trainers, but it's fairly slippery for clothing. So you can sort of slide under some of the obstacles if required. The obstacles themselves, as I said before, are made of scaffolding. So they're just steel 48 millimeters in diameter, and they have standard scaffolding clamps, and there are certain boards on like attached to these scaffolds. So it's tough, right? And you can probably, if you tune in, you can hear when an athlete hits the boards, that clanking sound is a combination of the wood smacking against the metal or the clamps rattling. There's certain clamps that rattle more than others because of the type of clamp that they are, and that's the noise you'd hear. So we if you listen or watch certain sports like basketball, especially now during coronavirus, where sometimes they don't have a live audience. I was watching a basketball tournament recently, and you hear a lot of, without the audience, you're hearing all the squeaking, squeak, squeak of the trainers, yeah, and
Yeah.
and it was sort of too much squeaking, and the dead sounds. You do lack the atmosphere, not having a live audience. We felt that our sport with Chase Tiger, this noise of the squeaking trainers and the banging was really quite an interesting noise, and it's quite unique to the sport. You know, like I suppose a tennis ball has a certain, like that pop of a tennis ball is quite
Yeah.
nice, I suppose. When you know, in golf, when you hit a good golf, you know, when you have a nice swing and that tick when it hits the golf ball correctly, it's a
Mm.
nice. And in cricket, you know, you get there's certain elements of certain sports that just have a nice noise. Probably tennis, that pock pock is probably the best way to describe what I'm talking about. But we felt that capturing that noise, the banging, the clanking, and the squeaking of the trainers was an important element. And so we were working with this production company in the US, and one of the people in the company, John Savesi, he was able to get some microphones that he could put on the floor in between the bars, so they weren't going to be a trip hazard. And we have 4 microphones in the middle of each of the sections on the floor, and that picks up all of the sound. So hopefully, when you listen to the events, that noise. I mean, maybe the editors could have driven it up a little bit more in the mix, but it will be there. I guess your hearing is probably more sensitive to that sort of thing than ours is, but you know, it is there, and I was quite pleased with how that noise came through.
Yeah, I think my hearing will be more sensitive to that sort of thing, but at the same time, because I have to focus so much on the commentary, I might not notice it as much
Yeah,
as you
yeah,
would think I would, because I'm so busy listening to Dan Dawson, who is the commentator.
yeah, yeah.
He does a fantastic job. So I was watching the first episode of the new series that's just gone out on Channel 4 this past Saturday, and I actually really enjoyed it. I found it a little bit confusing at times, as
Yeah.
you would expect with it being a new world that I'm sort of diving headfirst into. But man, I just thought Dan does such a good job in those 20-second bursts of
Yeah.
really capturing what everyone's doing, and going over and diving around up the mountain and across the sisters and all that sort of stuff. And I thought that it worked really, really well.
Yeah. So Dan is a great guy, and he's a professional commentator from the world of darts. And he's assisted by Connor O'Carroll. Connor is a former athlete who competed at the first event that we did. Or I think he got injured for the first event. I think he competed at the second event. But he's with the team Marrero gang. And then now he's like helping us with the commentary. And his level of analysis on what teams should be doing and when they should be doing it has been really, really good. So he's been really important part of that commentary team. And I think him and Dan work very well together.
How did you manage to get Dan? Like, did you approach him? Had he seen stuff and approached you, or how did that happen?
When we were working with Channel 4 last year, Channel 4 wanted to do an event, and so we had a production company called Sunset and Vine, and we're working with a guy within that company called Mike Brosnan, who is still working with us now. And Mike was saying that because Damon used to do the commentary himself, and Mike was saying that we need to get someone who was like more, I don't know how to say this without offending David, more professional.
Oh, than yeah, no, there's no offense taken. No offense taken. I was rubbish.
And so but it was much more nuanced than just that, because there's certain, like him not being a parkour professional, not knowing the sport so well, there were certain things that he could ask questions and put certain things, and that Connor would answer. So there's a bit of a question and an answer thing, like a banter going on between them. But now Dan has done quite a lot of research into like the parkour and the movement and the styles. And there are certain moves that he, like, for example, a Kong, which is like a kind of leapfrog where your knees come up to your chest and you go over the obstacle, rather than your legs are straight and they go around your arms. Yeah. This is like most common kind of vaults, called a Kong vault. And they have variations of that, like a dive Kong, where you dive over. It's the same sort of movement, but you're extended out, diving before your hand comes down on the obstacle. And then like a double Kong, where you would put your hand on one obstacle, and then instead of you completing the action with your legs moving through, you then bounce off that obstacle onto the second obstacle. So your hands, it goes hands one obstacle, hands the second obstacle, then your knees come through. This is like a double Kong, and these are just variations of that. But that's how Dan has learned some of these sort of moves. Yeah. So, but I was thinking, would it help if I went through the quad and just described, because we've given names to some of the obstacles, and
absolutely, yeah.
So what we have is, imagine a complete square, 12 meters by 12 meters. And at the beginning, we have what we call the starter plate. The starter plate is where the starter has to stand before each chase. And the evader is allowed to go anywhere on the quad that the evader wants, right? So immediately from the starter plate, we tried to design the quad in such a way that it's sort of lower at the beginning, and then it goes up a bit higher towards the back end of it, right? So the first obstacle is a thin row of what we call benches. And a bench is something, there's sort of three sections in this bench. The width of the top board is 30 centimeters, right? And the middle section of that, the height from the ground to the board is about, what is that about?
Belly button height. So
yeah, it's about
height.
Belly button height. Yeah. And then the two benches on the next to that, right, which run parallel to the starter plate. Those are a little bit higher. Those are coming up to just like under your chest height, sort of thing. So so you can go over it or under it. And we try and design the quad in a way that we call it like body type neutral. So it doesn't favor tall people or small people. Typically, you can go over or under, and it should be about even depending on your height. So
I was just going to say, the best way to describe it, you should. We've got. I don't know where you're based, but one day you should come round if you can and just walk around the court. We've got it set up in the garden. That would be the best way to do it, to actually feel the obstacles and just have a walk around yourself. You know.
That could definitely be something that'd be pretty interesting. Obviously, I don't know how it would work at the minute with the current situation, but I think at some point, when everything goes back to normal, that would definitely be something that I'd be really interested in doing.
Or at an event or something like that, just come around and just walk around the quad and feel it, because that's going to give you the truest representation of what it is. Just feel it for yourself, feel all the obstacles, feel the distance between them and stuff like that,
So who first started designing them? How did you come up with the ideas for the obstacles?
There's an architectural piece of software that you can get called SketchUp. And when we were doing the first thing, we just literally designed it on SketchUp. And then Damien really liked Meccano and Lego when he was young. So he kind of, as soon as we ordered the scaffolding, he was out, he was in his element, And so we've just so going around, there was a guy that we were dealing with at the beginning called Jason Matten. And Jason was an old, parkour, one of the, when parkour first started to emerge in the UK, Jason was at the forefront of that scene. And Jason put quite a lot of names to some of the obstacles. So going around in a clockwise position from the front line. So those benches that I described earlier were called the front line. To the left of the front line is a low table that's about
115 by 115.
Yeah, 115 centimeters by 115 centimeters, and the height is probably about mid-thigh or just above your knee height. And it's got, on the left-hand side of it, it's got a structure with like a trellis of scaffolding sort of thing to create a bit of a barrier so that you can hide behind that. Some people can dive through, so the holes are big enough to dive through. And that trellis structure is about 6 feet once you're standing on top of the on top of the low table. So altogether, it looks a bit like a chair, like one of those big fat reclining chairs. So we Easy Boy, that section. And then moving clockwise further up, we've got these two benches that are the similar height to the higher benches on the front line. So that's just sort of just below your chest height. So you can crawl under them, and the distance between them is probably about, what's that, probably about 4 feet between them. So this is, people could stride them or double Kong over them, or someone's even sort of speed vaulted over it, this sort of thing. And those are called the sisters. Then just up in the far corner beyond the sisters is a big structure. It's one of the heaviest ones to carry. It's called the tilted cube. And the tilted cube is probably about 6 feet long and about 4 feet wide. And it has a big metal structure around it that's angled, right? So that gives quite a lot of protection in that corner. And then that links going around now to the center of the back end. There's a big structure that we call the mountain. The mountain is 2 high benches. So these benches are about 6 feet. I think they're 180 centimeters. And they're, again, the same, 30 centimeters apart. And people could go up on the mountain and jump from one side to the other. And then looking towards the starter plate, there is a ramp, which we call the mountain slope. And basically, it looks like a big letter H. And the wood that goes across it, the cross part of the H, that's about 55 centimeters wide. And then it fits into these two, again, lower square tables that are about 100 centimeters by 100 centimeters. And they're, again, about just above the knee height. And those are called the mountain tables. And then on the other side, going around to the other corner now, on the back side. So this is the far right corner at the back, is a structure that looks similar to the tilted cube, but it's called the loading bay. And it's more symmetrical than the loading bay. And again, it has a sort of trellis pattern on the outside of it. So the outside being the right side of the quad. And there are some holes within the trellis that people could reach through or dive through or something like that. And then working your way beyond that, there's another structure that got sort of two parts to it, called a ridge and the sled. And this is the last structure that's just in front of the other side of the front line. So this is sort of mid quad on the right hand side, and then it runs into the front line on the other side. And then and that's basically the whole quad. I'm really sorry, I've never had to describe it quite like that.
That's absolutely fine. Honestly, I think you've done a great job.
I just sound really confusing.
I don't suppose you've ever had to talk to someone like me before that has attempted to watch, because I'm just I guess I'm just a bit of a glutton for punishment. I like watching things that that I shouldn't be watching. Obviously, this channel is a professional wrestling channel, so I watch that. Which I was a professional wrestling fan before I lost my vision, so I have a bit more of a head start on that in terms of knowing, the names of the moves and knowing some of the people. So I find it easier to visualize. But I couldn't resist with this with WCT, because it was just so appealing.
A lot of the events that we've done in the UK have been at York Hall, and they do have some wrestling events at York Hall. And
Yes.
wrestling was something that I couldn't understand, because people really, really like wrestling, and I needed to sort of figure out, like, what is it about wrestling that is so appealing to everyone, right? So a friend of Damien's that he lived with down in Brighton he was from Canada, and he was a wrestling referee, and his referee wrestling name was Dixon Butts. And he used to get involved in part of every now and then he would be thrown out of the ring, or they'd smack a chair on his back or something like that. And he was a huge wrestling fan. And he took us to this York Hall event to explain, like, what was going on. And it was very interesting. And I actually enjoyed it a lot more than I thought I would.
I think there's a lot of, obviously, in terms of it's not the same, because wrestling's simulated fighting, but at the same time you've got quite a lot of stuff in common in terms of, I feel like WCT, it's obviously quite visual, and with the parkour elements, quite spectacularly visual, and gymnastic, which I feel like these days with wrestling, it's evolved quite a bit from what it used to be, and there's a lot of athleticism and gymnastic quality to it these days. So I actually think that these two sports are something that could actually share quite a few common fans, because I think anyone who's into wrestling would look at WCT and think, yeah, that's really cool.
Yeah. Well, I think one of the biggest similarities, I think, is one of the things that people like sports fans feel cheated on is when they have an event and you pay a lot of money to go this event they've been building up, and then you go to the event, and for whatever reason, it's just crap. It just doesn't work. And that happens so many times in sports. You're building out these, like, whether it's like a boxing match, or it's this or it's that, football match. Sometimes you're waiting. There's a classic football match, and then you know, you watch the final, and then the final is completely dead and boring. Yeah. And you don't know when those classic matches are going to be. What's good about wrestling is you've paid the money, you want entertainment, you want a classic match, and you are going to get a classic match when you go and watch the wrestling, right? And everything is sort of taken care, and you people who go and watch it always come away satisfied. I think in terms of sport, obviously, chase tag is totally unscripted. So there is the possibility that you can get like a dead game, but what we've found is when you have good athletes against good athletes, this leaving the score aside, because you don't want it, like, you know, if you have a football match that's 0-0, this is boring, right? And we try and design it in such a way that we're trying to get the right number of evasions in any match, and we want sort of 25% roughly of chases to end in evasion. And the design of the quad is a big part of reaching that particular equation. But even if we don't achieve that particular result, because the chases are so short, you're on a knife edge each time. It's like a sort of in a way, it's kind of like a penalty shootout. It's like a whole night of penalty shootouts. Yeah.
Yeah.
We've found that despite this, you know, and that's where I think we differ to other sports in that every time we've done an event, it's always been so entertaining to watch, even if necessarily the action on the quad is not necessarily the best. The format of the matches and the chases themselves, just that side alone makes it exciting, you know. So, and in that respect, I think even if you're not seeing what's going on, if you're listening to it on the radio, I still think it could be a really exciting sport, more so than other sports, because you know, the matches itself don't last that long. In real time, they last anything from 10 to 16 minutes, something like that. So it's everything is short, it's very intense, it's very sharp, and I think it's entertaining in that respect, you know. And so, like wrestling, I think you're going to get a satisfied audience most of the time, which you can't say about all the sports, really.
I think it helps that you've got so many different athletes as well, in terms of, you know, each team has got a few athletes on. Is it 5 or 6? I think.
Yeah, it used to be 5, but because the last event that we did, we had more. There was more matches that each team needed to play. We decided to increase that to 6, so that to cope with tiredness and potential injuries and that sort of thing.
Yeah, so having that many different athletes, is constantly someone different to watch and see what their skill set is and stuff like that. So I think that definitely helps. And I really did like the punchiness as well of having it be these 20-second sprints of just it's go, and then, you know, Dan's going crazy trying to call the play-by-play action, and then all of a sudden it's over and someone's got caught or someone's evaded, and then it's on to the next thing before you've even had a chance to breathe.
Yeah. One of the things that inspired, we call the chase cycle, which is what we do for in between each chase. We have like an announcer speaking about the score and this sort of thing, and there's a lot going on. And this was sort of our intention after sort of watching like computer games, when there's so many, like there's graphics coming up on the screen, explosions going off here, and you got you know, we want to sort of keep the intensity going the whole time. And that's one of the things that we don't want like a long protracted, like 90 minutes of football, or like NFL games last for 3 hours, baseball lasts for 3 hours, cricket lasts all day. We want like matches to be like really sharp and short, but there's a lot going on within that that time, and then in between matches we can all take a break and chill out a bit. But while the match is going on, it's pretty intense. Yeah.
So this last episode that just aired on Channel 4, I was actually watching it earlier today, so it could be sort of fresh in my mind for when I came and talked to you.
Okay.
And the person that I think stood out to me the most, and I'm sure you'll understand why, was its name was Kyle Soderberg. I think
Yeah.
was it. I'm not sure whether I'm saying his second name right, but
Kyle
um,
Soderman.
yeah, Zoderman. Sorry, yeah,
Yeah.
and he actually really stood out just because of his performance and his evasions. So by the end of the episode, I was actually already found myself invested, like, when he's going for it, come on, Kyle,
Yeah.
which I think is a good sign considering that I've only managed to sit through this one episode so far. Obviously, I've watched the YouTube videos, but this is my first full episode that I'm managing to tune into. So I thought that was a good sign.
And with the tops, we design all the shirts ourselves, and we have the 16 teams. We wanted to sort of try and differentiate between the teams. So Damien selected from we had the manufacturer, and we chose 16 different color schemes. So some teams have like two colors, like they got different colored sleeves and sort of gray tops, and some have just one color. And then all the teams chose their respective colors. And Hollywood Freerunners, they have this vibrant pink. So it really, with the way the lighting was, they really stood out a lot. And yeah, their colors, I really like their colors. Pink is not necessarily one of my favorite colors, but I must admit, on screen, the pink that they had looks really, really, really amazing.
I like that we instantly got into the drama of it being a tournament setup. Obviously, I won't give any spoilers, but Hollywood free runners put in a good performance, and then we got different placement drama, and I actually thought that was really cool as well. It wasn't just a straightforward, this person's through and that's done. It was actually, because of the round robin setup, there was actually some pretty interesting developments on the drama.
Yeah, that
So
first week was an interesting group because it came down to three teams on the same points. So it went down to then the number of evasions, and then the head-to-head between. But it was a tight group. It was a tight group. But yeah, it was interesting. So yeah, you'll see three of those teams again in subsequent episodes.
I think that I'll personally be backing up the Hollywood free runners just because of my guy Kyle's on there now.
Okay.
What was it like when you first started approaching the athletes? Was that nerve-wracking at first, or because you've been in the parkour gyms on the way up,
Yes.
was it a little bit easier?
Yeah. So when we did our first event, we did it in the UK. We're lucky that they have the parkour scene in the UK is quite vibrant. So we were able to attract some really good people. And in our first event, someone got injured before the tournament, just training like parkour. And they were in a team called Morera Gang. So they reached out to this guy. His name was Danny Ilabaka. And Danny is like a parkour legend, right? And he said, yeah, I'll do it. And no one had seen Danny for a long time. Doing like he hadn't done any sort of parkour related videos for a while. So it was a real like honor to have him. And also competing at that event was a team called Stora. Now, Stora at the time, I think they had like maybe they had, I don't know, a few 100,000 subscribers on YouTube. Stora now have over 6 million subscribers. So we were really lucky to get these guys Stora. And the first video that actually went viral for us was a single chase between one of the guys from Stora called Sasha Pal against this guy, Danny Ilibaka. And I think maybe one of the reasons why that video did so well was because it got shared by a lot of people within the community, because they were like, wow, look, it's someone from Stora against this guy, Danny Illebaka. So it was really good, and we were just fortunate that when we live streamed that first event, there was a really well-known parkour athlete called Jesse Lafleur, and he was watching the live stream and commenting and that sort of thing. So yeah, we were lucky that right from the beginning we were able to attract some of the best parkour athletes. And then once they'd seen the first event, then people kind of wanted to compete at other ones. So it then over time, more and more people wanted to compete. So yeah, we've been very fortunate so far to have such good people competing, because at the end of the day, that's what makes it entertaining to watch, is when you have good people doing amazing things, and these guys are like superheroes sort of thing. So to actually see them move around such a confined space at such speeds, it's absolutely incredible.
And what about when you first started approaching people to get it on TV, like Channel 4? Was that nerve-wracking, or did you had you got confidence in the product by then? Or
yeah, each time I do an event, it's not like approaching the people, because we've had so many like no's over the years, that it's not nervous to approach someone. But what is nervous is whenever you have an event, it's, are you going to do it right? And doing this last event, we basically did over 500 chases. We had 36 matches. So normally when we do an event, we've had only like 7 matches. So to then up this to 36 matches, we learned a hell of a lot from doing this last event. And we were working with like a different crew, because normally the people, when we do the event here in the UK, we have a whole team of people, but because of COVID, no one is allowed to travel to the US. So we had to apply for a special exemption visa that allowed us to go over there. And so we had to work and teach everyone completely new, like what we were doing in every element. So that was making me nervous. So that's the nervous part more than anything else.
I think you did a really good job of describing the quad. But was it a surprise to you when you first started talking to me, like the idea that someone like me could be watching?
Yeah, it was. It was. I didn't. Well, actually, when you first were commenting on Twitter, I didn't. I didn't understand. I misinterpreted what you were saying. I didn't realize that you couldn't actually see what was being portrayed on the screen. So it was interesting to hear your comments, and I'm still interested to hear, like, to see actually, yeah, maybe this could be something that, yeah, like sort of for a radio situation or visually impaired, this is something that we could still continue to appeal to that audience. And that's why I'm interested as well to hear, like what are the things that we could do to improve the offering to that sort of community. And so, yeah, it's good to have these sort of conversations in that regard.
Obviously, with it being so new to me, I haven't really got 1,000,001 things that I can tell you that I think need to be improved right now. I'll definitely keep watching, this current series and try and feed you as much as much information as I can. But if you've got any questions for me, I feel free to fire away, because I'm happy to answer anything that you might be wondering.
What must be frustrating for you is that is just sometimes people don't think about it. And I must admit, it's with everything that we're doing, I hadn't actually given any thought to what kind of offering are we giving to people that has some kind of visual impairment. So now that we've spoken, it's sort of on my mind a little bit more, and that, it's just, that's always going to help, even if, yeah, of course, you're always going to get things wrong when you're starting out, because but actually having that in your mind somewhere is going to help. So I think you're doing a good job for reaching out to different people to just get more of this sort of thing discussed, and I will, next time I speak to Dan and Connor, I'll tell them about this conversation. And, when things like that at the back of their minds, it sort of helps them. I mean, I know Dan, being the professional that he is, he probably structures his whole approach in a way that's he's probably been thinking about it anyway, even though we haven't been. And that's probably why you like his commentary so much. But there are things. I mean, I'm glad that we put the microphones on the quad, because I think that makes a difference to some people as well. But
I definitely think it gives it that sort of visceral sort of like just a really good audible impact to it, because you can hear all the stuff that's going on. I'm struggling to sort of find a way of verbalizing the way that I feel about it, but I do think that was a really good choice, because it just makes it feel sort of more like you're actually there, because you can hear the obstacles sort of rattling, etc., and the feet, like you pointed out.
Yeah, good. Well, yeah, I'm really glad you enjoy it, and I hope you continue to enjoy the rest of the series on Channel 4. So this week,
Yeah,
I've just put on our website, I've just updated the schedule with Channel 4. So it's got all of the dates for the rest of the series. There's one date for episode 5 that's unconfirmed yet, the exact time. But this Saturday, we're on just before the rugby on Channel 4, which I believe is at like 1:10 on this Saturday.
Well, to make sure that they can keep up with it, obviously anyone who's listening, who's interested, should go over to the World Chase Tag Twitter and follow you guys, so that they can keep up with it that way anyway, because I'm sure that you'll be posting updates on that as they come anyway.
Yeah, we do that. Twitter is probably the platform that we use the least in a way.
Okay.
But I guess it's probably the one that makes most sense for your community, I suppose, that or Facebook. But
yeah, Twitter's the most accessible for me. But feel free if you want to list off where people can find you, or what your community is.
I mean, our main things are like, our website is worldchasetag.com, and then we're World Chase Tag on YouTube, Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. So those are the main things we do. So, however, whichever one is the easiest for that particular member. The offering is slightly different on each. Like YouTube, we tend to put the individual matches on YouTube. And we haven't started to do this event yet, because we're still busy editing the actual program. So as soon as that's finished, we'll start putting matches out on YouTube. So probably in December, we'll start putting out the individual matches on YouTube. But in order to promote that now, we're putting out sometimes individual chases on Instagram or Twitter or Facebook, or like all three.
What are you hoping for the future then with World Chase Tag? Where do you see it going in a year, a few years from now?
Like I said at the beginning, like, our goal is just to try and create a sustainable community, and sustainable for everyone involved. So not just ourselves, but we would like to be big enough that we can have other people employed that can help us try and get through all of the things that we need to do, but also sustainable for the athletes. It'd be great if we could create a situation where the athletes themselves were able to make money either from endorsements personally or from prize money or something like that. This is our goal, really.
I hope you can get there. Honestly, I'm going to be fully behind you, supporting you as much as I can in my limited capacity. I'm not exactly, a huge influencer, but I will definitely be sure to show you guys as much support and encourage other people to as well, because I think that you've got a really, really good thing going on, and I think you should be proud of yourselves for what you've achieved already.
Yeah, thank you very much. I appreciate that. And look forward to maybe seeing you at one of the events in the future.
Oh, that would be absolutely killer. I'd love it. In a post-COVID world when everything has been hopefully sorted out, that will definitely be on my to-do list, because I think that would be absolutely awesome.
Yeah, good.
Okay, so I'm going to wrap up this recording, and we'll have a little chat afterwards. But to anyone listening, thank you very much. I hope you've enjoyed this. Thanks for your time. If you've enjoyed this video, make sure you hit the like button and go and follow World Chase Tag on all of their social media platforms.
Thank you.